Everybody, it's David, HOMT 321. Just want to let you know I am still in Fredericksburg, Texas, still at the Magnolia House Bed and Breakfast, and my wife let me cook breakfast this morning, so that was kind of fun. I hope all the guests are going to be okay the rest of the day. Um, I just wanted to let you know I'm fully engaged in the course. Took a couple of days, but you should have everything that you need from a grading perspective. And so what I wanted to do is, as I mentioned in the first video that I sent you, is I do a recap of the prior week's lesson and then a preview of the upcoming week's lesson each week, and I post it on Monday morning. So it is Monday and starting lesson 4, but what I wanted to do is to review lesson 3 and then preview lesson 4 for you over the next couple of minutes. So I hope this is helpful for you. Lesson 3 had 2 discussion boards and an application in addition to the quiz. And the first discussion board talked about interruptions. And you'll notice some of the experiences that I've had as it related to interruptions that are just going to happen. I mean, interruptions happen regardless of whether it's a small business or a large business. It just seems like the magnitude of the interruption may be different. However, if you're a small business, even a small interruption can have an impact on your operations. And so I talked in particular in my discussion board, if you didn't get a chance to read it, about workers calling off, quitting, calling in sick, and how as the leader of the organization, if there's a guest at the door, if there's a guest in front of you, you have to be able to respond. And so those are the ultimate interruptions that you have. You may be checking a guest in at the front desk and the phone ring, and the phone will ring. And I always would tell all of our employees that the most important person that you deal with is the person who is currently in front of you. And so if you have to let the phone ring, if you have to let it go to voicemail, make sure that you take care of the guest who's directly in front of you right now. And so enjoyed reading your discussion posts on this particular topic as well. One of the key areas, not only in which was dealt with in discussion 2, talked about stress management. And obviously, the different stressors that you have will be either magnified or lessened based upon your role in the organization. And so as the leader, manager, general manager of a company, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant or whatever, has responsibility for all the different functional areas inside of the organization. And so obviously, stresses can be higher. One of the things that I mentioned in my discussion board this week was just some of the creators of stress, and so you can't be naive to think that stress just happens on the job. I mean, workers bring stress into the job with them. They take stress home with them, and so there are many key drivers, if you will, of stress. And one of the key things that I used to like to do in our organization is to make sure that I realize those things. And that goes beyond, I mean, it's kind of tough today in organizations where you have to be careful, how much interaction you have with employees because you can't get too close, you can't be too far away, so it's a real challenge. But I always used to like to kind of know what was going on with our employees because if I don't understand what their key stress drivers are at home, again, not that I wanted to get that involved, but if I didn't understand those things, how could I really respond if they were coming into work late, coming in forgetting things? I mean, all those things have some sort of genesis point somewhere. So I think it's important to fully understand those things. The application this week, or the assignment, talked about strengths and weaknesses. One of the things I want you to do, I placed an announcement in today that you will be able to see that talks about self-analysis. It talks about strengths and weaknesses, and it's a video from one of my favorite writers called Marcus Buckingham, and he's a big proponent of strengths. And so I'd like for you to take a look at that video in your spare time, and hopefully it'll cause you to think a bit more about what you can do. His whole premise and the premise of the strengths movement is that you're strong in certain things and you're not as strong in other things, and chances are that's going to be the same way all through your life. And so it's almost counterintuitive from a development perspective. And as we talk about organizational behavior, I mean, if we had an employee who's good at 5 things and bad in 1 thing, what's their next development plan going to look like? Well, we're going to ask them to improve their weakness area. Well, chances are they're not going to get any better over their life. They may get a little bit better, but strengths, why would we not help them get even better in the areas that they're already good at? I mean, part of the Gallup survey and the study on this one was that you had parents who had children, and they gave them a scenario and said that the child brought back 4 A's and 1 C. And what was the general response from 86% of the parents? I think it was 86%. It was 80+% of the parents was to work on that weak area. And I think Buckingham may even talk about that in the video if you watch it. So make sure you take a look at that, okay? Let's move on to Lesson 4. Lesson 4 preview starts. This week is a little bit lighter. You have a discussion board, an application or an assignment, and a quiz. So you get one less thing to do. Yay! The discussion board this week talks about goal setting. It talks about how those are influenced. And so goal setting, I believe, is very, very important, because if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have a goal in mind, then how do you know if you're really being successful? And so one of the key things I always look for in goals, and I'll probably mention this in my discussion board post from me this week, is goals should involve 3 things. First of all, they should be very specific. They should be measurable, and they should be time-bound. So as a manager, as a